Yeah, well, if they got an actual public spring already, right equipment and everything.
How gorgeous this garden.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Hi, Mark.
No.
Sir Lawrence, I like that.
Where is the bird? Inside. The bird is not over there. No, the bird is, I promise you. The bird is inside.
Well, thank you all for coming and paying homage to JoAnn. When she passed this summer, it was chaotic and crazy. I went over there a couple of days after she had passed, and there was just no opportunity to do something like this. And Brendan was not in any kind of shape to do it, so I thought, well, we'll just put it off until the fall and have it here and wait for the weather to get a little better than last summer. So thank you for coming. And I'm the kickoff speaker. By the way, who's going to speak next? It doesn't matter. You can volunteer when I'm done.
No. Do you not have an agenda, Dad?
No, I didn't do an agenda. I have a potential list of people that Tommy gave me the names of. And where's Tommy? Oh, there you are. Yeah. So,
Being on the edge, easy action.
yeah.
Yeah, no, Nancy, who's going to speak, is not here, so I think it's just you and I, and then are you planning on speaking?
Yep.
And then
Okay.
you speak.
And then Robin's going to speak, so yeah. We have
Yeah,
the three
so
of
that's
us
it.
As well.
Okay.
I can go after you, Dad, if you like.
All right, you want to go after me?
Yes.
All
I
right.
would love that.
That's good because I don't like following my daughter since she's become a better speaker than I am.
That's very funny.
I thought I would say my piece to sort of bring everybody up to speed on maybe who JoAnn was in terms of her life, since not everybody knew her in the same way. So I'm just going to kind of do a summary of JoAnn's life as I saw it. I'm sure I'm going to miss a lot of facts and information and periods in her life, but the best I can remember. Start off, I want to talk about JoAnn. We have to talk about Joe and Juanita, her parents. They married in 1957, I believe. He had 2 children from a previous marriage, and of course my mother had one son from a previous marriage, Juan. And and after they'd been married a couple of years, they decided they wanted to have a child of their own. Now this was inspired by my cousin Sandy over there. See her in the baseball cap? Because she had 2 boys, and then she had a daughter. And Joe and Juanita fell in love with this daughter, who was a beautiful, blonde, angelic child that they wanted another one for themselves. And they carried on and on. And that child was Robin, who's right there next to her mother. Yeah. And so they got busy, and in October of 1960, JoAnn was born. And indeed, JoAnn was a beautiful child, brunette. I don't know that she was angelic. Never. Anyway, and our relationship, it was more like 2 adults, or 1 adult over a child, and then the other child comes along. And so we were both raised as only children. And I was more like an uncle than I was a brother for JoAnn. But I was also the main babysitter. And I babysit JoAnn a lot because, you see, we lived on Monte Rosa Street, 1 block north of Indian School, and right across the alley was the parking lot to what?
Top Hat.
That Top Hat. Yeah. And they spent a lot of time at the Top Hat, which is gone now, but was a semi-fancy piano bar. Well, then next thing I can remember is JoAnn going off to grade school, and she went to Madison No. 2, which was my alma mater. And unfortunately, she fell into a bad crowd. Yeah, she did. Which included Armand Gutierrez, Sally Sanford, who is there, Sally, Chucky Connors, Maverick Bednard, Diane Diogardi, Diane, there's Diane right there, Martha Mitchell, Donnie Sutton, Nancy Maggio, and Tommy Tweet, the worst of them all. And they were the best of friends, and I saw these people many times at my house. Who are you?
Jay.
We're some of those folks from Madison too as well.
Did I read off your name?
No, Jay House and this is John Doyle.
Okay.
Also from Madison too.
From Madison too.
They were on the good side.
They were the good Madison
We were the east side.
We heard you from over the wall. Come on over.
Anyway, that was the crowd, and they were in and out of our house for 8, 10 years. And then JoAnn, after grade school, went on to high school, and most of you went to Camelback, I assume?
Yep.
Yeah. And JoAnn excelled in high school so much, but because she's so smart. All of you know JoAnn, and you know that she had this wicked intelligence, which she could, produce a really cutting remark off the top of her head, no problem. But she also managed to graduate in 3 years. And part of that was that she worked hard and she was so smart, but she also went to Europe on some kind of Camelback High School sponsored thing where she got credit. So when she came back at the end of her junior year, she graduated, and then she went on to NAU as a 16-year-old freshman. And she was only there a year, and then she went on to California and went to Glendale Community College, over there in Glendale, California. Now, she had spent time in Europe, and so she fell in love with Europe, especially England. And she eventually put some money together and went back to England and stayed several months and ended up working in a pub in London with a guy named Brian Couper. And and they kind of had a thing. So they came back and got married. And you see there on the card, one of the pictures on the card is a picture of their wedding. And that was a fun experience. Then they moved to California. And JoAnn went to work for Pactel. Now again, given JoAnn's intelligence, she didn't have a college degree, but she managed to get a position as an engineer, working there, responsible for the installation of big phone systems that went into businesses. The kind with the PBX operator and all that kind of stuff. And she really did well. And at the same time, she got pregnant with Brendan and had Brendan, the light of her life. And this was in 1984. And not long after that, she and Brian kind of fell apart. And so they got a divorce. And JoAnn, to her credit, was able to pull off the whole single mother thing, working full time and raising Brendan. And things went pretty well until June of 1994, when she had, JoAnn's life has been marked with some strokes of bad luck. And she would be the first to admit, well, it was bad. I've had bad luck, but a lot of it was my fault. And she's right. But still, she had strokes of bad luck that were unbelievable. And the first one was in June of '94. Coming home from work, she took the off-ramp on the 210 at her exit, and some teenage boys were joyriding, and on a lark came down the ramp going the other direction. And she had a head-on collision. that shattered her face, gave her a traumatic brain injury, shattered her breastbone where the steering wheel went right through, almost through her, shattered her knees, her legs, broke her hip, plus multiple internal injuries. And I'll never forget getting the call from her father, Joe, to tell me that this had happened. And the next day I flew over, went to the hospital. She was at LA General, which, a bit of trivia, is the same hospital you see in the beginning of every episode of General Hospital. Yeah. And I went to the ICU, and she was twice her size. Her body was swollen, huge, and her face was unrecognizable. She kind of looked like the Michelin Man who had been run over by a lawnmower. And she was unconscious. She was in a induced coma for more than a month. And she ended up spending 4 months in the hospital. And that's a long time to spend in a hospital, not a rehab center, in the hospital. But she was that badly injured. She came home, and by the way, Joe and Juanito had immediately gone over there and had moved into her house and proceeded to raise Brendan until she could. And it took almost a year for her to kind of be back on her own, raising Brendan, and go back to work. Luckily, she had a boss who loved her and really supported her there at Pactel, mostly because she was so competent. And you know, if you know JoAnn, you either love her or hate her. But she could be a lot of fun, and she really knew what she was doing in this business. So he supported her, but eventually he got another job in a different company, and he left. And so JoAnn started looking around because she didn't want to not work for him, and there was no position for her at that company. And so she took a job with another telephone company that offered her way more money, better benefits, and a 401k that was fully matched by the company. Nice stuff, huh? And that was several years she worked for them until she got the notice that they were closing down because their CEO, a guy named Bernie Ebbers, was going to prison for fraud. And the company, if you don't remember, was WorldCom.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so JoAnn was not only out of a job, but her entire 401k and all her savings disappeared as well. I heard that WorldCom had gone under, called JoAnn and said, "You want to come work for me?" And she jumped on that, and she worked for a few years for him. But unfortunately, he retired. And when he retired, the woman who took his place, let's say that JoAnn didn't get along with her very well. They went immediately to war. And you know, when you go to war with your boss, you're probably going to lose. But JoAnn just hated her. And then the primary word she used to refer to this woman was well, I won't use the word, but it starts with a C and it rhymes with hunt. And but eventually JoAnn was out of a job.
That's one workaround.
And so another stroke of bad luck with her. Again, probably self-induced from her, but she was all of a sudden out of a job. And meanwhile, her physical condition was deteriorating constantly, and she was in more and more pain. For a while, she tried working as an independent contractor, installing the same kind of systems that she did with the company. But she just finally couldn't do it. So she quit and went on disability. First state disability and then federal. Now, if you've ever been on disability, you probably know that it doesn't pay as much as a top flight engineer gets paid. A whole lot less. And then on top of that, state ran out, and there was a long delay before federal kicked in, like more than 6 months. I can't remember, 8 months. And during that time, she got no income. And this was in 2009. Remember what was going on in real estate then? And unfortunately, JoAnn lost her house. Another stroke of bad luck. And I didn't realize she was in that kind of situation. Nor did anybody until I learned, she told me after they'd been removed. So Brendan and JoAnn moved into a one-bedroom apartment where she lived in the bedroom and he lived in the living room. And that was as it should be, because she was, with her meager disability checks, was paying the rent. And that went on for several years until Brendan finally got a decent job. And in fact, that went on until just this last July, when Brendan heard a noise coming from her bedroom, and he went in to find her having a seizure. And by the time the paramedics got there, she was gone. Kind of, you'd say, a sad story. And in a lot of ways, my sister's story has been a sad story. Mostly because of the bad luck she had, but also the pain she was in. And she, she had to be on huge amounts of opioids the last few years. And for a long time, and Tommy and I were talking about this, when you talked to her, she sounded drunk. Well, it turns out that one of the painkillers was morphine. And she finally found a doctor who took the morphine away and replaced it with something that worked better and affected her less, and all of a sudden the old JoAnn was back with the old sense of humor and sharp wit. So the last couple of years she was doing better, and then she died. Pretty sad story. I wanted to tell you that story because for me, I'd always loved JoAnn, and we had our differences. And I won't go into some of the details. But in the end, looking back, I admired her so much because she had, first of all, she had perseverance. She didn't give up. And I know sometimes she was tempted to commit suicide. And she'd call me and I'd say, JoAnn, if you do this, just think I was going to affect Brendan and the people who love you, like me. And she never did it or took any action. She had this sense of empathy for others even when she was hurting herself so much. For example, I don't know, most of you know that my wife was in a terrible bicycle accident that caused her to have a severe brain injury. And when I would try to comfort JoAnn, like she called me one night and she says, I got to go tomorrow to the dentist. I'm dreading it because the implants, my dental implants, have rotted out because the jaw is starting to fall apart, and I'm going to have them replaced, and I know it's going to just hurt like hell. And I said, I'm so sorry, JoAnn, that you have to have this kind of pain. And she said, it's nothing compared to what CJ went through, is going through. So don't worry about me. I'm okay. And I had to respect that. All through this terrible time, JoAnn never lost her spirit and her sense of humor. And those of you who saw her the last time she was here, she still could tell a raucous joke, sometimes a really gross joke. And she was always fun to be around. And I'm going to miss her. Megan, you want to?
Does anybody want to get more refreshments?
You say we need to be drunk?
Well, we are celebrating JoAnn, right?
This is true.
So I'm Megan. I am Larry's daughter and JoAnn's niece. JoAnn was 10 years older than I am, and there was never a time in my life that I did not know JoAnn. JoAnn has always been there. And being only 10 years older than myself, she was the person my parents dumped me on when they wanted to go do something.
Top hat.
The top hat. I really wish the top hat was still around because it sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was.
And I was describing my relationship to my Aunt JoAnn to a friend of mine recently, and she said, oh, it sounds like she was a big sister, because I'm an only child. She says, it sounds like she was a big sister. I said, it was really better than that. Because with a big sister, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's always that fear that they're going to tell on you, right? Or that you're going to get in trouble with your big sister. There was no fear of getting in trouble with JoAnn. In fact,
Did you tell on her a few times?
I think she probably was more worried about what I would say to Juanita and Joe about what she was doing. But that was the best part about being with JoAnn, was it was total freedom. Or that's the way I felt. It was total freedom. And JoAnn was only judgmental if you were not yourself. She truly embraced people that were who they wanted to be. And some of the best memories I have of my childhood involve JoAnn. And one of them is when she did go off to Europe. She traveled Europe. I think she was again in high school, 15, 16 years old. And I remember a whole crowd of us went to the airport to welcome her home, which seems so funny now. I mean, now we come in and out of airports. Well, pre-COVID, we went in and out of airports without even thinking about it. And a whole crowd of us went there. And I remember I turned and I saw her running down the hallway, and she had these great tight jeans on with rips, and her hair was flying, and she was running down the hall. And I was 6 years old at the time, and I was the first one she ran up to and grabbed me and gave me this huge hug, and I was so happy she was back, because I felt like my person is back. She was my person. And all of us drove to the house on Monte Rosa Street, the one behind the top hat. And she proceeded to pull out things she bought overseas, and we all looked at it. And I remember one of them was the toilet paper they had in the UK. This is the toilet paper! And we're all like, how can it be? It's tissue thin. They don't have 2-ply. We were shocked. How do they live like that over there in that third world country? The irony is I married a man from the UK who loves 2-ply. So, and then JoAnn went, she moved on to Pasadena. She went to U of A, and that for a short year, and she went on to Pasadena and lived with her brother Tony and his wife Thelma. And I remember she would talk about, Thelma was a clean freak, and she and Juanita, my grandma, her mother, would just laugh and laugh because Thelma wipes out the garbage can. Oh my God, the garbage can. And we just laugh at how crazy Thelma was. And then I married a man that wipes out the garbage can. I really like having a clean garbage can. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not the one that wipes it out, but I love having a clean garbage can. But those days when she was living in Pasadena and she was in college and I was about, again, 8, 9 years old, my parents would fly me over there, which is just, now thinking about it, so crazy, but they just put me on a plane and fly me over there to spend a weekend with JoAnn, where my dad kindly calls it babysitting. There's no babysitting involved. I mean, I think JoAnn just was there to make sure if I did run out in the street, she'd pull me back. But I remember that, an 8-year-old, you have to remind them to take a shower. JoAnn at 18 didn't know that. So 5 days would go by and I hadn't even showered. It was great. I remember I was on the phone with my mom. I said, I haven't taken a shower in 5 days. And JoAnn's like, you haven't taken a shower? You should take a shower. I'm like, yeah, right. And I remember being with JoAnn was just always it was always a fun experience. It was glamorous. We went to Disneyland during one of those trips where I was staying with her in Pasadena. We went to Disneyland with her and a friend of hers named Erica. And we were actually pulled aside by security as we entered the gates because we didn't look like Disneyland people. And they had to adjust their appearance to go to Disneyland. And to JoAnn's credit, she did it because she knew I wanted to go to Disneyland. And so they adjusted their appearance so we could go to Disneyland. But there was nothing forbidden with JoAnn. I got to wear makeup. you know, she tried to encourage me to drink. But I remember what Nancy Reagan told me, just say no. And I was just, we'd go to these parties and they were just great because everybody there seemed so adult to me, which is funny because they were 18, but they seemed so adult and they're so glamorous and they're smoking marijuana, they're offering it to me, and they think I'm old enough to drink, you know, it's great. And I remember she was a theater major and going to see her in one of her performances. And it just was beautiful. She was gorgeous. She was up on the stage. She had a black dress on and they kissed on the stage and they smoked marijuana on the stage. It was just unbelievable. And my parents just kept sending me back. Really, so many of my favorite memories as a kid involved JoAnn. And I think the best lesson I took away from having her in my life was truly not caring what other people think. You have to be who you are. She embraced that. You are your own person, and you cannot worry about what other people think. And she lived that. She lived that more than anybody I know. And my dad comes pretty close, but JoAnn really lived that. You are who you are, and you live it. And you just can't worry about what other people think. And she did have the accident, and I was so glad my dad put the poster together, because when I was looking at those pictures, because really I was thinking about it, truly half of her life was post-accident. And you forgot about what a vital force she was. She was such a force to reckon with, and she was so much fun to be with. And he kind of forgot about that after the accident because she was in pain and because, you know, having something like that happen to you affects how you live. I mean, and so you forgot about that. And that poster reminded me of what a tremendous force she was. And I'm really grateful that the last time I saw her, not that we like to think about the last time we were with someone, but the last time I was with her was when she came over for my surprise 50th birthday, right before the COVID shut down. And I was so glad that I got to spend that time with her, not knowing it was the last time I was going to see her. But now when I think about it, we had such a good time. We had such a good time at my party. I was so touched she came. And as my dad said, she was on a different medication. She was more of JoAnn. And that's a really wonderful memory that I have. That last time we were together was having a good time, having a drink, having fun. And that's really, to me, so much of what JoAnn was. She brought the party with her. And I know with her being gone, there's a little bit of the party that has left. But I know moving forward, to this day, I think about how would JoAnn behave in a situation, because she does not care about what other people think. She only cares about being who she is, being true to the person she is, and doing what's right. And it may not make everybody happy, but it makes her happy because she knows that she's doing what's right. And that's really what I think I take away from my life with JoAnn, is that you are who you are, and you put it out there, and you do it. And some people love it, and some people hate it. And the people that hate it, she'd say, and that's what she'd say. But you know what? That was the best part about JoAnn. So I think everybody that got to have JoAnn in their life is just a little bit luckier. Thank you.
Who don't know me, my name is Tom Tweet, but I really go by Tommy Tweet, and I'm really from Twig, Minnesota. I moved here with my family in 1965. We lived at Blue Sky Trailer Court on 32nd Street in Van Buren. It was a one-bedroom with a Arizona room and 6 children, 2 parents, and a dog. In spring of '66, my parents always wanted to live in the Madison district. When they moved out here, they had done their due diligence, and that was the school district that they wanted their children to learn. And so we were fortunate enough to find a home over on 19th Street in Meadowbrook for $19,900. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Right next to Tom Sherlock. And we moved there. And I met JoAnn in July of '66 at Summer Recreation. For those of you that remember Madison 2, it was in Mr. Morrison's room where we were at. That was the art room. And I was in there. I was working on a color scheme for this plaster of Paris I had of a dog. And it was just a dog face with droopy ears and nose and blah, blah, blah. And she came up behind me and started to tell me how terribly wrong I was with the color scheme and that this just wasn't going to work and extremely bossy. And I looked over at her and I did not say, "Who the are you?" But I was like, "Really? What's going on here?" So anyway, I nicknamed her in my mind that day Little Miss Art Critic. And after that incident was over, I thought, okay, great, I'll never have to see her again. And about 6 weeks later, the Tuesday after Labor Day, Madison 2, Mrs. Ball's classroom, I walk in, and who's there but Little Miss Art Critic. I'm like, oh, great. Along with several other people, including Armando and Sally and Maverick and Diane and the list can, Martha Mitchell, and the list can go on and on from that first grade class. And we managed to somehow maintain a friendship for 54 years. And I just find myself so incredibly blessed and lucky to not only have her friendship, but each of your friendships. And I'm so honored that you're here today to pay tribute to somebody that was so important to us. It was an early morning on July 5th that I received a phone call from Brendan. It was a holiday for me, but JoAnn kind of got confused after she quit working, and holidays didn't really mean anything to either people that are retired or not working. And so when the call came in about 6:45, I thought, oh, she just doesn't realize it's a holiday, and I was sleeping. And so I thought, well, I'll just call her back. And about 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. And I figured, okay, something must be going on, and it was Brendan. And although I have prepared myself since the accident, that I knew one day I would get this call, that this person that was part of me was not going to be there. And so my head kind of went into overload, and I really didn't know what to do. It was odd. It was almost like an out-of-body experience, and I just kind of sat there, and I did something I haven't done that early in the morning. It had to be when I was on vacation, so it's been a couple of years since COVID. I went to my freezer, got out my Jaeger bottle, and I did a shot. Figured I didn't know what else to do, so it was too early to start calling people. It was a holiday. So finally about 7:30, I started sending out some texts, and I also did something else I never do, and I posted on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. If you try to friend me, I'm sorry. It's nothing personal. I haven't been on it in 10 years, and you can't erase yourself. So, but I did get on there to post that message because I really didn't know how else to tell anybody. And although we lose contact with each other, there's Brendan, I bet you. It is Brendan? Well, have him step right up to the...
I think Tommy can pick up right where he left off.
I'll send up.
Yeah, we're making a video of this, but I've got you up to the microphone, so if you want to say a few words, can you see the crowd there?
What's up, people?
Hi.
How you guys doing? I have a lot of pictures. I probably have of you guys that I don't know who it is. I found a picture of Sandy, and I have them here with me. I don't think it would help. Larry was saying you guys wouldn't be able to see. Is that Neil?
No, they're too far away to see. But if you'll send them to me, I'll distribute them to everybody.
Sounds good. I'll send the pictures over that I have doubles of or anything that I think you could use.
Okay.
I just want. Alright, well, I love you guys. Take care.
Love you.
Larry, call me. I'll talk to you guys soon. Call me afterwards. I'm going to work. Gonna go
Okay.
move some mail for the post office.
Okay, well, drive carefully to work. It's a long drive.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys. Jump in the pool for me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
God bless. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
Brandon.
Bye.
Okay.
JoAnn lost her memory from the accident. I like to talk about her in two different ways, and so that way I can share some of the stories that you're going to hear today are before anything ever occurred. I feel so very bad for her son because I don't think he really has any memory of her pre-accident. I think the only mother he knew was post-accident JoAnn, which is unfortunate because we had so much fun and we got into so much trouble all the time. And we'd always talk about, I would try to prompt her because I knew her memory, long-term memory was really, really, really shot. There's a whole, just gaps of lots of things that she never remembered. And so sometimes when we would talk on the phone, I would kind of throw out events to kind of see if anything would sound familiar or that kind of thing. And one of the things that we were both amazed at is that both of us remember that first time we ever met at recreation. And you think about that, that was 54, 55 years ago. I was 6, she was 5. The fact that both of us remember that incident and her criticizing me and me like dismissing her, it was that's just crazy. And one of the memories that she had. During first grade, like I told you, I'm going to be here a few minutes. I promise we won't go year by year. I was envious of her. I'm going to be honest. I didn't care for her art taste, but she always read better than everyone, and I was extremely jealous because when the teacher was far too busy to entertain 30 children, she would just grab a chair and put it at the front of the classroom and put JoAnn down there and read a book to us. Now imagine in first grade, little Miss Snot Pants reading to us. You know, if she didn't have a big enough ego already, that just kind of attributed to it. She was a great reader, and so of course I was jealous of that. But it wasn't until years later that I kind of figured out what was going on, and that was she was just a very highly intelligent individual, and the teachers just struggled with what to do with her. She was bored in class every single year. She was already light years ahead of everything that we were learning. So, of course she could get into trouble because she was rambunctious and she was bored and she wanted to be entertained. And guess who was right next to her? So, I got into trouble because I was right next to her. And so very quickly, I think a couple of years into our grade school, Madison 2 figured out that they could not put her and I in the same classroom. And so they actually told my parents that they were moving me to another classroom because we were too distracted to the rest of the class and teachers. So yeah, if you look at, there's only a few classrooms that were together. It was odd because in 8th grade they put us back together again. And we had Mr. Greener. He was a horrid teacher. It was his first year that he had ever taught, and JoAnn intimidated the hell out of him. He was so, I felt bad for him because it's his first year, and he had this precocious 8th grader that could put circles around him just on everything and was always right. And so I believe that was his only year that he taught it. I don't know, security or paper
Selling real estate.
1 year. Yeah, you remember that team teaching? But it was during that time that JoAnn and I cemented this friendship. I would hang at her house. For me, it was like going to a home where there was nobody because I came from a house of 5 siblings and 2 parents and a dog. And so I would go to JoAnn's house and it'd be Joe in his purple boxers in the sofa, screaming at the TV about some sports game that I could really care less about, but he always wanted to, Tommy, gotta come watch his game. Tommy, you gotta come watch his game. JoAnn would say, no, he's here to play with me. And JoAnn was more interested in sports than I ever was. But it was like being an only kid, so it was kind of fun. And I was just fascinated that she had this playroom that was just hers, and her mother and father, her relationship with her parents was so different than my relationship with parents. It was really kind of the first times I ever encountered that. Honestly, I think we even tried to talk our parents into allowing me to spend the night over there. Like sleepovers, like you did in grade school. You know, it's okay for the girls to do it. It was okay for the boys to do it. But the girls and the boys couldn't do it. And I never understood that because it was never a sexual thing. It was always just a friendship thing. We just wanted to have fun. That's just what we wanted to do. And it's always the goal. So we dressed up, and of course this is the 70s, so platforms were quite the rage. So she had on really big platform shoes. And we're sitting there drinking a pitcher of margaritas, and we're having dinner and laughing and having fun. And all of a sudden we look over and we see Mrs. Laws sitting in the next row over. And we're like, that's Mrs. Laws. Well, JoAnn could care less. As everyone said here, this is truly is JoAnn. JoAnn could really give a damn about what anybody ever thought at any time. I just love a person that has that much confidence. She did not care. It was not that she was not a caring person. She just didn't really care for your opinion. Because as far as she was concerned, it wasn't the right one, unless of course you agreed with her. So anyway, she didn't care, but my mother was deeply involved in grade school. My mother and father would go out drinking with the principal and his wife on the weekends. So it was not a good thing for me, for the school nurse to be seeing me at 17 years old drinking margaritas at George's Lake. So I needed to get out of there as quickly as possible. So we finished up our drinks. Of course, we have to finish them. And as she's scooting out of the booth in these big hill platforms, her ankle gives, and boom, she goes right on the floor. And of course, we just busted out laughing. There's nothing else we could do. And we never got busted for it. My mother never said anything, so I figured it was good. Let's see. Spending time with JoAnn was always fun. It's always an adventure. Joe and Juanita, I was always amazed again by the child rearing by Joe and Juanita. At one point, there was a long, long time ago again, Old Phoenix, 20th Street and Thomas, there was a Baskin and Robbins up there. Yeah, see, the old school know this. And in the evening, Juanita would want ice cream, or Joe would want ice cream, or JoAnn would want ice cream, and so we'd go down to get ice cream. Well, you would think the parent would drive the car, right? The parent's the one with the license and old enough to drive. Well, little Miss Art Critic, little Miss Reader, little Miss Overachiever, 15 years old, Juanita throws her the keys to the cars, and boom, off she goes, and she drives down there and drives back, and once again, I'm like, dang, I really got the wrong parent ticket. I was so jealous of her. Or like she got to go to Europe, and when she went on vacation every year, her parents always allowed her to bring a friend. So Donnie went, or Robin went, and yeah, I always like, are you kidding? My parents were hoping they'd lose one of us on our trips. Dear God, they had so many of us. But so it was always fun that way. So Joe worked for Procter & Gamble, I believe, his entire life. And part of his contract with Procter & Gamble is he got a car. He would get a new car, every year or every other year. And when he retired, he had to go out and buy his first car. It was a blue Impala. It was as big as that pool. It was huge. And it was a Friday night, and JoAnn called me a little bit early, and she said, you need to get over here, and you need to get over here now. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll hop on my bicycle, over to Monte Rosa I go, and this big, beautiful car's there. And that's it. I said, what's going on? She said, my dad bought a new car, and we're going to go for a drive. She's 15, I think. She does not have a license. I know that. 14 or 15. Okay, cool, I'm in. So we go for a spin. We're out for about 30 minutes. And decide we're going to head back because, it's time for beers and smokes and rummy. As we turn the corner on Monte Rosa, Joe Gansey's standing in the middle of the street like this. And I said, oh, and I said, JoAnn, you need to stop the car now. We're right at 22nd Street, Monterey. So I said, stop the car. I said, I'm gone. You're on your own. I ain't dealing with your dad on this one. So I bailed, and I just walked home. I left the bicycle. I didn't care if I ever saw that bicycle again. And it was a good couple of weeks before I went over there, because Joe had a good temper, and he does not forget. And sure enough, the first time I show up, I'm not there 5 minutes, and Joe Gansey pulls me outside into the backyard and proceeds to read me up one side and down the other about how dare I let his daughter take the car and blah, 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 blah. He said, God damn it, Tommy, you have better sense. I know that. She's not smart enough. I expect you to do better than that. I thought, in hindsight, I should have said, don't give her the keys and let her drive at 15, and maybe you wouldn't have this problem. But yeah, so Joe always felt that I was one of the family and I could be scolded just like anybody else. In fact, I was kind of held to a higher standard because I wasn't raised in the crazy house of Gansey. JoAnn graduated, like Larry said, early from high school. I hated that. I really did. I loved JoAnn. We had such a great time. It's so rare that you get somebody like that in your life. Knowing that our friendship was going to change, she was accepted at an NAU. And after 12 years of day-to-day shenanigans, and long before we had cell phones. So if I called her or she called me, that was long distance. And it was not unusual for her and I to talk for hours. So we couldn't afford that. So we didn't really talk day-to-day like we'd always done. And she was never eager to return to Phoenix because that meant she was under Joe's thumb. She'd much rather spend time at teak and frat parties, meeting boys. During the first year while she was up there, and I guess the only year, she had a brand new car, and everybody was asking her for rides. And she called me up one time, and
everything I hear today is just so comforting, because JoAnn was loved so much. It's hard. So like my cousin Larry said, JoAnn and I were 9 months apart, and some of the best memories of my childhood are with her. When my brother Bob and my other brother Roger, when we were young, we lived in California with my mom, and we would come to Arizona to spend 6 weeks in the summer with our dad. And so it was during those summers that I spent time with JoAnn.
I think that's me.
And there were 2 summers in particular that were really life-changing for me. We took trips. We went, one summer we went to Mount Rushmore, and with Joe and Juanita and my great-grandmother. And JoAnn and I were hell on wheels. It was mostly JoAnn.
Yeah, always
I was the follower.
We were just the accomplices.
I was the follower. We had the best time. Not even Mount Rushmore. It was with her. It was with her, and we basically were prisoners in the back seat and we had to keep ourselves busy driving. We were driving forever, and we basically terrorized Joe in many ways, driving him crazy with our antics. And I don't know if it was during that trip or the trip we took to Canada, British Columbia, but we started this game between us, like, which would you rather do? And it was whoever would come up with the grossest, bizarre, crazy situations. We had two choices, basically. Which would you rather do? And some of the ones that she came up with were really scary. And we would just laugh. And Juanita, being the awesome aunt and person that she was, she would make us journal. She would make us write about our trip, write about, you know, what did you do today? She made me eat octopus one time in a restaurant in our travels, and she wanted us to record what we did, and we didn't want to do it, but we did. And I was so grateful that she had us do that. And so when we went to Canada, to BC, we went to Bouchard Gardens, and I had my little, I don't know what it was, a Vivitar camera, or I don't know.
Brownie?
But I had, if any of you have been to Bouchard Gardens, it's beautiful and it's colorful and it's just gorgeous. I was taking pictures all over the place. Well, I had black and white film. So that was kind of upsetting. She razzed me about that for years, about those pictures. But the trips we took, it was just like it was not only a vacation, it was such a fun time, because JoAnn she was fun and funny, and I loved her. We were just together during those times, and you know, even when we didn't take trips, you know, in the summers, I would look forward to being with her and spending time and going to the house on Monte Rosa, and you know, there was a Jack in the Box behind that house, and we would walk through the backyard.
Still there, right down from the top hat.
Right down from the top hat.
And we'd walk through there, and we'd go over there, and I always remember her saying, and I used to think it was gross, but she would always say, I love the tacos there because I like to eat the taco and the grease runs down my arm. And to this day, if I eat a Jack in the Box taco, I think of her. I always think of her. But we spent so much time there when I would be here in the summer, and we did so many fun things, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved the time with her. I loved the time with, you know, with Juanita and Joe, and I looked forward to that. You know, on one of our trips when we were in the back seat, driving, Joe, so I'd sit behind him typically, and she'd be over here behind Juanita, and they would take the map and they would spread it out over the steering wheel, and Joe is like cussing and you know, lost, and Juanita's trying to figure out where they're going. And we always had like an ice chest right on the back seat on the floor. And so one day I remember we're driving and there was pop in there, so I took a can and I opened it with the flip top, and it sprayed all over Joe. All over the window. And he really went off, and and JoAnn's just laughing, and you know, just stuff like that. I mean, I just remember those things so distinctly, and they were fun. They were just fun. And you know, JoAnn like everyone before me has spoken about her intelligence, I was just in awe of her many times. And pre-accident, there was so much, and then post-accident, so different, just so different. And when she was in California, I didn't see her as much. Every time she would come here, I would try to see her and spend time. And I'm so glad that she doesn't have that pain anymore, because she had it for so long. And it was so undeserving for her to have to do that and go through that. I am grateful for her and being in my life. And I miss her. I miss her a lot. She and I used to we would text back and forth, we would call when we could, we would try to catch up, and we reminisced. We talked a lot about growing up and doing the things that we did. And a number of years ago, she called me and she said, did you get that package I sent you? And I said, no, I don't think so. Not that I know of. She said, well, I think I sent you something, and so I hadn't gotten it. Well, about a week later, I got it, and it was a book, and it said, the name of the book was Which Would You Rather Do? So we talked about that, and we went, and there were some pretty good things in that book, but really nothing as good as what she had come up with on her own back in the day. So, I love her, and I miss her, and I'm grateful that she had all of you, because she talked about all of you. And you all made a big difference in her life, as she did in mine. So I thank you. And Larry, thank you so much for hosting JoAnn today and celebrating her. She's absolutely loved by all of us, and sorry I had a hard time getting through this, but it's been difficult, as you all know. So, thank you.
I think everything that took place here today is a reflection of JoAnn, what kind of person she was. And we'll all miss her, and we all loved her, and that's about all there is to say.
What did JoAnn say to you? What would you rather do? What's the grossest thing she said to you? Because I know she said some seriously gross things.
It was seriously gross things.
What was the gross thing she said to you? What would you rather
Like
do?
eating a cockroach versus a booger.
Right, yeah, that's a G-rated one right there. That's a G-rated one. Yeah, it usually had something to do with making out with somebody, right? That it's related to.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming. And I'm glad we did this. I wasn't sure how it would go. And yeah, we have some, kind of munchies in on the table in there, plus more wine, beer, and anything you want. So please help yourself.
What would you rather do? Wow.
Okay?
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you. And I know you and Tommy worked on this together, so thank you.
We did.
Tommy.
We did.
Yes.
And all the eats are Tommy's responsibility, so blame him if you don't like them.